Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on Titus Andronicus, otherwise known as Shakespeare's glorious play, and today's going to be gross. We get to hear from Titus in Act 5, Scene 2, and it's going to be a gross one, so be prepared for that. What's going on? Tamara thinks that Titus is crazy, so she brought her two sons, Chiron and Demetrius, and they all disguised themselves. It sounds like it wasn't very effective disguises. She dressed up as revenge and dressed them up as rape and murder, and they show up to Titus's place to tell him that they will help him get revenge on his enemies. And he's been noticing this whole time that they look amazingly similar to Tamara, Chiron, and Demetrius. And when they said, "What should we do for you?" he was like, basically, go kill yourselves. But he framed it in terms of murder. When you see someone that looks like you, kill him, that sort of a thing. And they agree that they will, but Tamara also sort of asks Titus to make sure to bring Lucius home with some of the Goths, because remember, this is part of her plan to undo Titus. Is there's going to be this dinner party that she's setting up at Titus's house. It's supposed to be a parlay, and Tamara and Saturnius are supposed to come over and talk with Titus and Lucius, and they'll work this whole thing out, but being Tamara, it's not going to be very diplomatic. So she says, "Don't you want to bring Lucius home?" So he sends to have Lucius and a couple of the top Goth generals who are now following Lucius to come home for this dinner. And she and Chiron and Demetrius are like, "Oh, let's go and take care of his bidding." And Titus is like, "Why don't rape and murder stay with me?" And Tamara is like, "Can you guys handle this?" And they're like, "Yeah, we can handle this." And then we, the audience, find out that Titus is fully aware of the fact that this is Tamara and Chiron and Demetrius, and so he's got a plan as well. So Tamara leaves to go do Titus's bidding, whatever. She's going to like make her plans for this dinner party. And in the meantime, Titus has some of his family members and servants come out and tie up Chiron and Demetrius and put things in their mouths so that they can't talk. And he goes away for a second while they bind them, and they also remark that these must be Chiron and Demetrius because that's who they look like they are. So the disguises are really bad. And Titus comes back in with Lavinia, a knife, and a bowl, and he says, "Come, come, Lavinia, look, thy foes are bound. Sirs, stop their mouths. Let them not speak to me, but let them hear what fearful words I utter. O villains, Chiron and Demetrius, here stands the spring whom you have stained with mud, this goodly summer with your winter mixed. You killed her husband, and for that vile fault, two of her brothers were condemned to death, my hand cut off, and made a merry jest. Both her hands, her tongue, and that more dear than hands or tongue, her spotless chastity. Inhumane traitors, you constrained and forced. What would you say if I should let you speak? Villains, for shame, you could not beg for grace. Hark, wretches, how I mean to martyr you. This one hand yet is left to cut your throats, whilst that Lavinia 'tween her stumps doth hold the basin that receives your guilty blood. You know your mother means to feast with me, and calls herself revenge, and thinks me mad. Hark, villains, I will grind your bones to dust, and with your blood and it I'll make a paste. And of the paste a coffin I will rear, and make two pasties of your shameful heads, and bid that strumpet, your unhallowed dam, like to the earth, swallow her increase. This is the feast that I have bid her to, and this the banquet she shall surfeit on. For worse than Philomel, you used my daughter, and worse than prone, I will be revenged. And now prepare your throats. Lavinia, come, receive the blood. And when that they are dead, let me go grind their bones to powder small, and with this hateful liquor temper it, and in that paste let their viled heads be baked. Come, come, Be everyone officious to make this banquet, which I wish might prove more stern and bloody than the centaur's feast. So now bring them in, for I'll play the cook and see them ready against their mother comes. And that's the end of Act 5, Scene 2. So, have you seen the South Park episode, Scott Tenorman Must Die? I think that's where the idea for that, this is where the idea for that came from. So what his plan is, you know, he has them bound and he brings Lavinia in so that she can see that they are no longer a threat to her. And then he reads off their crimes to them, that they, you know, that they killed her husband, that they killed Basanius, that they framed Marcius and Marcius and Quintus for Basanius' death, that they raped and mutilated her, and that all of this ended up in Titus losing his hand as well. And he's like, you know what I'm gonna do? You know what I'm gonna do? Like, there aren't words that you could say that would make this better. So you're just gonna die. So I'm gonna take this knife and I'm gonna cut your throats, and she's gonna collect your blood in this bowl, and then I'm gonna take your bones and turn them into flour, mix that flour with your blood, and make a pastry dough in which I'm going to put the meat of your heads and bake it. So he's making Chiron and Demetrius pies out of their heads, bones, and blood that he's going to serve to Tamara when she comes over for dinner, so that she ends up eating her own children. Because that's exactly what this play was missing, a little healthy dose of cannibalism, right? So yeah, it's, yeah, I guess he's really, really angry. And I guess he has the right to be angry, but going from that sort of anger to, I'm going to make pastry dough out of your blood and bones and then bake your face in it, that's quite a leap. It's quite a leap. So anyway, at the end of this monologue, or the last couple lines of this monologue, he does slit their throats, and Lavinia is standing there to collect the blood, and then he's like, okay, everybody, let's go fire up the ovens, because we have a feast to make. And that's the end of Act 5, Scene 2. So we only have one more act to go and about 5 days of this left, and guess what that scene is gonna be? It's gonna be a dinner party. It's gonna be a real fun dinner party. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow for more when we get into that. Mwah.